We are live.
Hockey Nation fans, welcome back to the Hockey Nation live show with Coach Frenchie directly from the booth and our co-host of the day and every day directly from the West Coast of California, Michael DeVellano. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday. I almost said Tuesday, but we are Wednesday, half of the weeks already. Um, it's not like a bad time. It's just like I think we're starting to be waiting and tired to wait and see what's going on. The good things going on one thing is tomorrow Thursday, right? Tomorrow Thursday we have the manager, the NPHA, the NHLPA, and the NHL have a phone conference on the tomorrow to talking more about the beginning of January and have a chance to watch to listening sport nets and everything like that yesterday and the chance now they cannot wait until February. The rumor is it would not be good if the NHL start 6 weeks after the NBA start at Christmas. So overall and around the league, they are pushing a lot for the beginning of January 2020 and 2021. Of course, they have a lot of discussion about the format of the division, the number of the game, the number of the roster. Now they are thinking about that also. Not changing the salary cap, but increase maybe the number of 23 to maybe 25, 26 with the player they have on their, farm system or whatever it is. So that would be very interesting about that one over there. In the bubble situation, so they are thinking about for sure they're not going to be the same format they have like Toronto, Edmonton, right? But they are thinking to go a 2 weeks bubble somewhere, a 2 weeks over there, a 2 weeks over there. That's maybe that they are looking. So maybe a 2 weeks left, and then somewhere, and then a 1 week's off back home, and then return for another 2 weeks, some stuff like that. So they are really look about this, and of course, the situation with both countries, right? The rules, the COVID, and the traveling, and all the rules, and they can apply, no apply. The testing also is another part of the situation. Plus, now they found in USA, they found maybe a vaccine, 90%. See, there's another way where, the major sport or the people higher on the, they get maybe quicker, those stuff like this compared to not like general people around the countries, right? So that may be another subject they have to look about this. You have a lot of things to talk about before they take a decision and to see about that. If I have to if I have to do a guess, I expect between 60 game area to 72 max. I really believe they're going to do a Canadian division. I believe this is going to happen this
way. It would make sense. I mean, I think that politicians have zero intent of letting this thing. It's a virus, right? So they're not gonna. It's never going to go away. I mean, this coronavirus has been around forever, so these guys are just going to keep everything locked down, and you're going to have to live with it because unless they've just voted in a bunch of new people and they're going to do a worse job. So this is like you're going to have U.S., Canada's distinctive everything. You're not going to cross borders.
Exactly, and then they talk about Anthony Stewart, Anthony Stewart, the ex-hockey player, now works with Sportnet. He talk about also the escrow for the players and the way they can manage their money and everything like that. So we have a lot of discussion on the NHLPA also. They have to figure out with agreement for all the players in NHL. So that was coming for tomorrow. And I'm sure the next 48 hours, I'm pretty sure Friday morning when we're going to go our daily show, we're going to have a lot of information about that and give back to you guys everything's going on in the NHL for the upcoming season. Honestly, Michael, we have to take a day off today because we don't have any signature nowhere. Nobody signed anybody. Unfortunately, the a lot of things going on around the league. It's more about the loss of the two great people, and the more of the wheel maker and all the tribune. They talk about Alex Trebek the last couple of days. So that's what really was more around the NHL yesterday and today. And I can go a little bit more deeper about if you want to know. I want to talk about today is another things. It's November 11, and the November 11 is all about the service of the people. It's a memory day, everything like that's for the people. So it's really want to thanks everybody for their service in the army and everything around the world, sacrifice and the family and their life to give us us to have a freedom. And it's a really touching moment for didn't have any members my family of be involved, but I know a lot of friends with that. You have a great article today. It's great to watching sport. It's great to watching what's going on in sport we love, but sometimes we don't know the story of players. You don't know what's going on around their life, and it's something with the social media, Michael, for the last 10 years, we have a better chance to listen, to know more about each player. Today, I want to talk about something really. I don't know if you know about the story of Brian Elliott, goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers. Do you know his wife? She's a military.
Oh, I did not know that. No.
Yeah. So they met at a young age, and when he came to perceive his dream to play hockey, she took her dream to be a part of the army and to go overseas on many trips of 5-6 months, and to do our service, so we thought that. And
not a bad idea with being a hockey wife.
Yeah. So behind the story, they have a great article where Brand is really touched about that, the family army, and they create her and him. They create a lot of movement, community, helping the people and the back, and they are done with their service, but they're still alive, and they do their fun things, and they're helping them to recovery, everything like that. So a lot of things he does for them, and also for those family. And during the time during the time he was on the bubble, he lost his grandfather, where he was a member of the army. So you talk about this and everything like that. So it's really sometimes we don't think about those. They have their life behind the hockey, right? They have their family, they have a wife, they have family, kids, and everything like that. So we have a lot of good, great article today on Sportnet about Brian Elliott and his wife and their time in the army. So today is November 11th. We just want to thanks for your service, everybody, and their sacrifice they make for leaving their own family to go left and right. Because the story is about he left for the bubble for 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? And then many of them live for years and leave behind their family and their life and everything like that. So it's really good article about Brian Elliott today, and just want to say thanks for everybody for your service around the Florida Panthers. I don't know the story about Florida Panthers, but like 4 or 5 years ago, one Viola by the team, and they started back. They bring a lot of people from the West Point Academy to work for them, and they start this. This is the first team in the sport. They create to tribune one person at each game on the video and everything like that. And they started this like many years ago. And so they invite a family, and they join a offsite. They do a tribunal video, and every players, I'm telling you now, for about 2 minutes, everybody's shut down. They're just watching, and the players, thanks them. tribune or stick up on the ice, clap the eye on the ice. So it's pretty amazing what you do, and and then you can see now the other team in NHL does this, the same thing what the Panthers start. So just want to mention about this part was this really they create a lot of program for the for those people around here in South Florida. To be honest with you, so we are catalyzed, or we are, people say I'm nobody at the game, everything like that. But I think we don't see a lot of things what you do on the community for the people around here. They are really involved. Unfortunately, I wish people knows more about what the Panthers do around here, does around the community around here. Honestly, because honestly,
the other point grad that's interesting is Bill Foley,
yeah,
who's the owner of Vegas. So you see like the impact in business, like these guys are super successful, obviously, and their education at West Point obviously was a part of that. And I think they've done a really good job also in Vegas of honoring veterans, as do most cities. I mean, I think there's always been a connection. Like, if you look at back in the history of the NHL, like, and you read about even during wartime, there's a lot of players that served.
Yeah.
And it always seemed to be very connected, to hockey is, the concept of military service and honoring veterans. So
exactly. So today was about
when someone indicated that, Don Cherry got fired over getting angry at people for not wearing poppies.
Right. That's true. I was thought about that one over there. So, I'll be honest with you. That's the only thing we have today about other.
Yeah.
Like we have maybe the discussion. I make a video about the best 10 contract in NHL so far for the upcoming season, and I just want to mention the top 10 quickly, with not go deeper, but it was McDavid, then it was following by Jake Gunsel. Is it Gunsel for the Pittsburgh?
No, Jake Gunsel, yeah.
Yeah. So then Victor Edmond, we have Nikita Kucherov make the list, and then we have Shea Theodore on that list with Leon Brinsall.
Very good.
Yeah.
Great contract.
Matthews, and then we have the last three. We have Martian, and then we have also the best one is David Pastrnak. The reason I did this and how this work is it's not about the amount, it's what they bring to the team and increase the chance to win their percentage of each game by their weight, what they bring for the team, like scoring and assists and point per game. So that was the reason we did the best 10 contract in NHL. It's not like
what was the final one?
It was David Pastrnak.
I think you missed a huge one, which is Nathan MacKinnon.
It was number 3. That's what I meant. I forgot to mention that one.
McKinnon's the best contract in the NHL.
Yeah, he's a number 3 because Backstrat he scored 48 goals last season, and but again, at the end of the day, you're right. It was number 3 right there, and but it's very amazing when you see those contracts. Martian, McKinnon, and
Pastrnak.
that. Okay. So I believe Backstrat is still or Mercer is still for 5 years for $6.3 million.
It's interesting, I think when you break down some of the teams that are able to consistently compete, how many teams with $10 million players struggle? Like we have teams like Boston or Colorado, and they've got a main player. Now Boston or Colorado's got Rantanen, which is a fairly big contract, which means McKinnon eventually will. But up until that point, it leaves room for other good players to play with them.
So I'll be honest with you, Michael. Like we follow this every day now. We create preview team. Today we're going to talk in a few minutes about New Jersey Devils, right? For me, I never been go deeper, and I find out like the draft how the salary works, and you can see that Boston did not have anybody over $9 million.
Like, it's crazy. And then you've got like really good players that are consistently good.
Crosby, $8.7 million.
Who's that?
Well, Sidney Crosby.
Oh, well, the Crosby contract at one point was considered expensive-ish because when, it's a long contract, right? Because you have Malkin and Malkin's a little higher per year, but the value, it works out. But that's a great deal still, like it helps.
I'm going to bring tomorrow, Friday, the 10th worst contract in NHL. I'm working on that part over there. Yeah. So, but again, it's like
there's a couple.
It's the concept of the management. I'm impressive. Like Tampa Bay, I have maybe the top best 3 team with friendly contract. Yep. Colorado was another one there. I'll be honest with you, Rettinen at 9.5. It's not expensive. It's expensive, but it's not expensive but again, compared to Tavares and Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner.
That's insane. Like, that makes no sense. They're constantly going to be up against the cap. I mean, I think Colorado's going to have problems when they got to re-sign McKinnon and Makar. And so we know, and then they got Bo Byram. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because eventually Byram's going to get paid, but he's a ways off, which is good. But still, you can project like in the future. So they got to win,
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. But you think about Leon Draisaitl.
What a steal!
Right, he's still like 6 years
at 8.5.
At 8.5. I mentioned on the video he's going to get an extension at some point. They will not hanging there. Like if he's produced another 100 points, I believe in the next 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, he's going to get an extension.
They have no reason not to be competitive. Like but they're constantly against the cap, so that is a challenge.
But again, on the flip side, you're going to see bad contracts. Where, it's like, oh my God, Boston gave a great contract to Marchand Backstrat, but look what they gave to David Backes.
What was that? 4 years times 5, or what was it?
6.5.
Yeah, and he dropped off real fast. Like,
bang, he get there.
He got a really. I think there's a life like. It'd be really interesting to talk to someone like a Julien Brisebois, where he has a system, and it's got to be related to where are they on the life cycle of their age and production. And yes, there's comparables to other players, but where are they going to fall, and how do I have a gap there? And do I predict that?
But before you talk about Brisebois, I will say to you, he learned from who? Steve Yzerman. And look what Yzerman is doing with Detroit.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you can see. So I don't know who influenced who, because Brisebois is considered the capologist. So I think it's interesting. And he's a lawyer, right? Whereas Stevie Yzerman's definitely not, which doesn't mean anything. But I think they're all conscious of it. And you can see, like, Stevie Yzerman is doing the same thing in Detroit. Like, to get Mantha at 5'7", and it's like the guy is going to get 5.7 until he's 30. He's done.
Look, their goalie, Andrei Vasilevsky, he got maybe $8 million or $9 million. That's it. He did not get $10 million.
Who's that, Vasilevsky?
Yeah. Look at his contract.
Contracts are going to kick him in the ass no matter what eventually, but.
Yeah, but it's controlling by the fact, like, hey, if you stay here, if you get here, look, in NFL, I know they struggled this year, but New England Patriots always been a team with low salary contract over there.
Tom Brady left for money, and you now see how he is deserving of it. But it's a good comparison. I mean, first of all, I don't believe necessarily in Moneyball, because I believe that idea makes your team a farm team for richer teams, right? In baseball, anyway. But in hockey, where there's a hard cap, it makes a lot of sense. Like, it even in the NBA, where there's a luxury tax, you can't, it's tougher, right? Like, in the end, NBA is like, get the best players. It's a different game. But NHL, you need depth, and that's how you win. And yes, you need impactful players. So you lock up your impactful players. You take a risk, or you lock them up at a rate that you think in the future is going to be less. And that's what you see these guys doing. It's brilliant. Then you look at Chicago, and they'll never win a cup again. You look at LA.
1 or 2 mistake, Michael, contract, you can hurt your team for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I give you a good example. I think you bring this a lot of times when we speak here on the Daily Show. Talk about San Jose Sharks. What they gave to Erik Karlsson, $11 million right there. And look about what they gave to Marc-Edouard Vasily is over $7 million right there.
Much, man. Well, look at Minnesota. Like, the Minnesota contracts are terrible.
Parise.
I mean, those guys I don't mind. Those two. Because they're both like 7, right?
Yeah, but
7.
Yeah, 7.5. But how long? 12 years.
Yeah, that was how you got them to have a less cap, and that was actually pretty smart. That was Chuck Fletcher, right? And that made them go from junk to, potential. They're never going to compete now because we're seeing the end of that, and it's going to hurt a little bit, but it won't be like 10 million, right? But then you give Jared Spurgeon 7, you get Zuccarello like 6, and for a long time. Like, what are we doing? And then you look at like Carson Soucy, like that one's just poorly structured, that whole team, I think, and they can't compete. And what's the upside?
I really believe the NHL should create a rules where they could buy out players. I don't know, every year, every 2 years, or something where they did like what they did with Vegas. When Vegas came, or they had negotiated like 2 or 4 years ago, they could buy out 2 players for the next 2 or 3 years. Remember that rules?
Yeah, but I mean, there are buyout rules, and I think they're, it's part of the game. You just have to be shrewd, you got to be tough on.
Well, my point to you, because the situation with the salary cap for the next 3 years, with the COVID situation, they're not going to increase. I believe they should buy out. But again, it's negotiation with the NHLPA. Everything like that have to be a part of that one over there. So that's not easy to do that. But overall, it's something we just want to mention. We don't have many news around the league, so we just want to open up. My best 10 contract in NHL. You bring a couple of good points, but today we have to go to New York State. We're going to be for the rest of the week in New York State because we have back-to-back 3 teams, and we start today with the New Jersey Devils. Tomorrow we have the Islanders, and of course Friday the Rangers, where I'm excited to get that team. But today we have to go with the Lou. Mr. Lou is about 165 years in the NHL, but he's still working hard. He's still bringing a lot on the table. His experience, everything. Tomorrow with the Islander will be very interesting about that. I think it's now with Tom Fitzgerald and the new face of the New Jersey Devils. Will be very interesting about that with the change of management. They got the staff. The last couple of year ago with you mentioned about the coach John Hines move out of the team and see what happened now, and can't wait to have your information. All the information you have about the team, everything like that. So I can wait to get your input about the New Jersey Devils.
Cool. Well, I think they've had a bit of a turnover, right? Where they had John Hines as their coach. They replaced him with the assistant, Nazardine. I thought actually Alain Nazardine did a really good job. And then, now they make it official where Tom Fitzgerald is the general manager instead of the interim general manager, which is a little bit weird. Ray Shero went big. They dropped the 1 year. They looked like we're on the right track. Like, he went aggressive on the Taylor Hall deal, and that seemed to be, along with the PK Subban move, kind of the nail in the coffin, not being able to re-sign Taylor. They went deep on Gusev, and, we know how that all kind of panned out, but they made some pretty shrewd moves, I think, though, this offseason. I think they might have had the best offseason of any team. So the first is, now he brings in Lindy Ruff, an experienced NHL coach. Lindy's very capable. Over 1,100 games, maybe 1,200 games. He's coached a lot, right? And then, they still have these two cornerstone pieces, which is the first overall draft pick in Jack Hughes last year, and then Nico Hischier, who was a first overall pick a couple years ago. So the reality is that both of these guys have room to grow still, and they haven't really reached the level that people might have anticipated. But I think their development is for sure not stunted. It's just they're what they are, right? Jack Hughes, I have questions about. We'll talk about where he will fit in the lineup. And Nico Hischier is a very good two-way player with high skill level. We saw he meshed very well with Taylor Hall, and when Taylor Hall's MVP season with New Jersey, he gave a lot of credit to the rookie Hischier. So I think he's got lots of potential. Can either of these guys, put the team on their back? I think is a question.
19 years and coaching in NHL, 15 with Buffalo, 4 with Dallas, 14 under 90 games, 736 win, .561 from Lindy. Ruff is going to be his 20 years as a head coach. He was assistant coach with the Rangers, if you remember that, the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's very capable. I mean, I think there's question of his, what can he get out of these guys? Because he's got a lot of question marks still, in my opinion, on the roster. And he's got a lot of young players to develop. And I'm not sure if that's Lindy Ruff, but we're going to find out. That being said, they brought in some immediate help with Corey Crawford. The Andreas Johansson trade, I think, was real good. The Ryan Murray trade was like they gave up nothing to get him practically. The Kulikov, he is what he is. I'm not sure I love him. He's got some deficiencies. He's like an offensive defenseman that can't defend great, but doesn't score either. So it's a little weird. PK Subban is really a curious case where he really struggled last year. So it's going to be very important for him to find his game in some ways. Now, that being said, they have a very interesting prospect pool, and they have a lot of picks in the future that are, they could really help out. Like Alexander Holtz, to me, was exactly who they needed to draft this year. And then they get Dawson Mercer as part of the Taylor Hall trade from Arizona. And, with that draft pick, they've got a really excellent defenseman in Ty Smith that's coming up. And I don't know if people are paying attention to this, but Ty is a legit top 3 defenseman in the NHL at some point. So they have a legit guy there. And then Kevin Bahl, who also came over in the Taylor Hall trade, is a giant who can skate. And we've seen him on Team Canada. And he, to me, looks like he's got tremendous potential to be a top 4, at the worst case 5-6. But I think he's more like a 4 in the NHL at some point. And when I say giant, he's like, what, 6'7", 6'8"? He's a monster. We saw, I think the other pick was Muka Madulin. So that's an interesting one too. We don't know much about him, but we do know he's a big Russian defenseman, seems to be a good skater. Not sure what his offensive upside is, but he could, he's a good prospect. And then one that, again, people aren't paying attention to is they drafted Nico Daws this year. And we saw Nico Daws, he's a German-born citizen, but he's Canadian. And he offered, thinking that he would potentially play for Germany at the World Juniors. And they basically said no. So he's like, fine. And then he ends up going through Hockey Canada and becoming like the number 1 goalie through that system at his age group. So he's a legit prospect, very big goaltender, good technical. He's got a lot of potential. Now, do they need him immediately? Not really, because they're in pretty good shape. So if you look in net with Corey Crawford added, which I didn't even anticipate this move. Like, I think it was a bit of a surprise that they grabbed him, but it makes a ton of sense. They buy out Corey Schneider, who's been struggling to come back from hip surgery. Mackenzie Blackwood looks like a legit number 1 goal in the NHL. He's really panned out. I don't love their defense, even with the move of bringing in Ryan Murray. I'm not a big Will Butcher fan, who was a high-profile, signing, originally drafted by Colorado. I don't love Subban just because he's kind of freewheeling, and if he's not producing offensively, then I'm not sure. He's not at the Norris Trophy level he once was, but he's got to find his game. Like he's got to fit in. He's had trouble like moving on from Nashville, moving on from Montreal. It was more about his fit on the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. Damon Severson's kind of underrated. He's a big defenseman with a big shot. Not an amazing lateral skater, but he's good. I don't love Kulikov. It's more of the same of what you see in Butcher and maybe Subban. Ryan Murray's an excellent skating defenseman with not a lot of offense, so he might really help out on that second pairing. Connor Carrick, we see what he is. He flexes in and out. He's a small right shot defenseman that can skate, gets a little bit of offense, but he's not going to be in your top 4. All right, so now we go over to the forwards. Down the middle, they're interesting. To me, I'm not projecting Jack Hughes as a center in the NHL. I think after watching him last year, he has, he's a elite skater. He's a creative player. He does not, in my opinion, have a good feel for the game. I don't see him reading the ice, and maybe it's just time, but I feel he's one of these players that's got really high skill level, really great, like elite skating, and he would be much better on the wing. Hischier, on the other hand, is a great 200-foot player, very good playmaker, can score a little bit. He's had a little bit of an injury that set him back, but I think in the end, he's a very good centerman. So I could totally see Jack Hughes being more of like a Patrick Kane type player. Kyle Palmieri will be interesting. He's been their leading scorer and goal scorer for a number of years, came over for an absolute steal from Anaheim, a great move by Ray Shero. He needs to be re-signed or moved. Travis Zajac, I don't know. This guy's like father time. He still plays a very good game, but at some point that wears out. I don't know. He's had some injury problems. He's a big centerman that plays a 200-foot game and can chip in a little bit offensively. Nikita Gusev was highly touted Russian player, got like 13 goals maybe last year. We'll take a look at that. I think he's going to score more. He's a very talented player. He's very smart. I have to think that he'll have a bigger impact on this team going forward, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits with Lindy Ruff. There's players here that I'm not sure are Lindy Ruff type players, but we're going to find out. Now, Jesper Bratt, he has a really high skill level. He has a very good motor. He looks like an absolute steal. I got to think this guy is just going to get more and more responsibility in this system. He's not big, but he plays strong, and he's like a little tank, and he's a creative player, good skill level, and he's very underrated. He's a player to keep an eye on. Jesper Bachfist, his brother is Adam Bachfist. Adam is probably a top 3 defenseman in Chicago in the near term. Jesper is a pretty decent skilled winger, and he's like a lowercase Jesper Bratt, in my opinion. Pavel Zacha was drafted very high. I think he's a very good player. Hasn't really, caught on. There's little things in his game that people don't like, but I think he's a big guy, and he's still got lots of ability. Now, is he going to be like an 80-point player? I don't think so, but I think there's no reason he can't be a 20-goal scorer and 20, 25 assists. And he's a big guy, and he can play center or wing. Andreas Johansson, I think, was a great pickup by Fitzgerald from Toronto. They give up one of the Anderson brothers. I think it was Joey, right? Because the other one's Mikey. I always get confused who's where. One's in LA and one's now in Toronto. So I think it was Joey Anderson. So I really like Andreas Johansson. I think he can play in the top 6. He's scored 20 goals before. He should have more responsibility in Toronto. Really good skill, north-south type player, good speed, can shoot the puck. The fourth line's Miles Wood should not be on the fourth line. Like, Miles Wood is capable of getting 15, 20 goals. And he's a pretty rugged player. He's got a little bit of edge. Not necessarily a super skilled player, but he'll get more offense, and I think he can flex up to one of the top, even in the top 6 if you need him. Michael McLeod has been a high draft pick, big centerman. He's, he's a north-south type guy. I think it'll limit his offensive ability, but he could flex up as well. So they're deep, but there's still a ton of questions in my mind on this team. Like, if you look at the offensive production last year, they lose like 25, 30 goals when they move Blake Coleman. So, and that's a very favorable contract in Tampa. We saw him play in the playoffs. He's able to contribute on Tampa. So to me, that kind of hurts them a little bit. They need to replace that. They obviously lost Taylor Hall in the move to Arizona, but they get a lot of pieces back that will help them in the future. So really, this team falls to a Jesper Bratt and a Nico Hischier. Kyle Palmieri, will he stick in this here? I'm not sure. I hope they re-sign him for their sake, but he could move on. Zajac is getting long in the tooth, so he's not a young guy anymore, but he can still play. But that's going to run out at some point. So you got to think like Zach got a good offensive year, but you need more goals from him. He can really shoot the puck, so they got to figure that out. No Wayne Simmons, Miles Woods. You can see is pretty decent offensively. They've had a lot of pieces move out, but overall, I really do like the goaltending situation, and the new lineup will help. I'm just not sure if they're going to have the offense we would want. They've got some other interesting prospects. The Nolan Foote acquisition as part of the Blake Coleman could really pay off. Like Nolan is a big player who can score goals. So you've got to think that eventually he's going to be on this roster and have an impact. Ty Smith, I think this guy has got all the potential in the world to make the team this year. And he's going to be, in my opinion, like even right now, he's better than Ryan Murray. He's better than Carrick or Kulikov. And Severson, he might be better than Severson. So it's going to be interesting to see when he's ready, because he's not far off, in my opinion. They got a few salary cap issues. They bought out Corey Schneider. They have one more year to pay off Mike Camilleri. But overall, they're not bad situation. They've given Hischier a lot of cash. So now this kind of falls on him. And I guess what we're going to see is this guy ready to lead a team? Because he's 21, 22, and it's time. And do they re-sign? Zajac's probably going to be off the books, and that'll be the end of it. Palmieri, I think he's a candidate to be re-signed, but he's also a candidate to move. And the question will be, what can Nikita Gusev produce this year, and does he get a longer-term contract? So it's going to be all three movement clauses. So
I think Zach is the one where could be on the trade deadline upcoming season, because he's still only 30 years old and he can produce again for 3-4 more years, and he's UFA. So what he can get in return, that's maybe the reason why they're going to trade him.
Probably.
I'm not sure he's want to come back over there, but I think he's going to give them a list of the player, like the team he would like to go.
Yeah.
So I think he is the really one over there. When you talk about UFA, I think Zajac is going to be out of this. He's 36 years old after that. Very interesting about Nikita Gusev. He scored 13 goals last season. He's a product of a KHL.
Yeah.
He got them for nothing, if you remember.
Pretty much. Yeah. Vegas, just let him go, right?
Nothing about that one there, but because you mentioned about that, I was just jumping on the 3 UFA there. I will believe on the 3 there, I will believe Q7 could be the run there, but I would not give up on Palmieri.
Good for them, and it cost them nothing. That trade by Shero was excellent. To identify him on Anaheim and then get him over, Anaheim really could have used him the last 3 years. And then, I think Jesper Bratt needs to be re-signed. Mackenzie Blackwood needs to be re-signed. So those contracts are going to be important. I really like Jesper Bratt. I think that he came on the scene and was a really late draft pick, and man, he's panned out. And then Blackwood is the number 1 goalie. So do they go all in on Blackwood and try to get him locked up for 6 years, 5, or do they try to do a bridge? It'll be interesting to see.
They're going to give him a bridge. I think they have a lot of money. They still have $17 million there. The only thing is really interesting, Michael. They have only 16 players signed right now.
Wow, that's weird.
And if you think about that, they have 2 go. They have Jesper Bratt and also
Mackenzie Blackwood,
right? And they don't have a lot of things to negotiate them. So they're going to get maybe $2 million, example. So that would be 18. So they still have 2 more to go.
So it's going to be interesting because right now, part of that is that Ty Smith is not on there. Jesper Bachfest is not on there. Do you project a Nolan Foote ready now or in a year? So that potentially chews up a couple more contracts that'll move up. And then I think you've got You got room still. So that's let's say that's probably 2 contracts realistically. So now you're at 18, and then re-signing Blackwood is 19.
But when you talk about that, those
And
contracts,
Brad's 20, right? So you still have room for 3 more contracts.
yes. So if you go back the way you think about this, I really believe Nolan Foote could be very interesting about that one over there.
Oh yeah, he's an interesting player. I mean that might be part of the that might really pan out. Like they lose a lot short term with Blake Coleman, but you watch and you see what he is. He's going to get you 20 goals, but he's not like a high end dynamic offensive player. Now Nolan Foote is a monster. Like he's 6'4" and he's got great hands, and we saw him. He's like a bull in a china shop at World Juniors, so he's got a lot of potential.
The kids came from where Arizona. Kevin is not on the list still.
Which one's that? Kevin Bahl?
Yeah, he's not on the list.
He's down here. You can see him on the defense side. He's
no,
1, 3, 4 down.
Not on the roster yet.
No, do you think he'll make the team this year? It'll be interesting. If there's no AHL, they might put him on the roster because he's a big kid, and I don't know, he might adjust really fast. I really like him.
They cannot do I don't think so. They would be like both of them. I don't see Ty Smith and him together on that team.
I don't short term. I think Ty Smith you got to put on probably. You're going to find out that he's better than probably 3 to 4 of your defensemen.
You have also Riley Walsh.
I don't know him.
He came from the NCAA.
Okay.
So I don't know if he will, he have 3 years with the Harvard University.
Oh, so he's he's 21. Okay.
So
he's highly touted.
The product of a USHL, honestly. It'll be really interesting about him. But again, so they can pick up 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Faster defensive forward over there.
They'll get up to 21 pretty quickly with those moves. I think the question is, when is Nolan Foote ready? When is Kevin Bahl ready? And just the timing on that so that they're not exposed to Seattle will be part of their consideration. But I think they're going to have a real hard time not having Ty Smith on that roster.
Yeah. If you go back on your roster, every time that, I was like, hey, the only one right now, I believe Zajac could be a third, and then Zaka could be the second center over there. I like Hughes over there. Johansson is a really good pick. It will be more interesting about one over there. Where I'm really not sure, it's McLeod.
I agree.
Did not do anything. Did have 0 goal, honestly. But I'm not sure about.
He's a beautiful skater, and I don't think he has great puck skills.
Yeah, I really like Mildwood. I think 2.7 is a little bit expensive, honestly.
11 goals on a terrible team, so I think he, to me, is like. You probably, do you project him ahead of Bachfest? And if Gusev goes or a Zajac goes, he'll move up in the lineup. And he's got a little bit of edge. He's pretty decent size too, right?
Yeah. But you remember, he came for 2 years ago, and 17, he scored 19 goals.
That's what I'm saying. He should be higher in the roster.
So he never been the same player since that year on the production. But again, he's 60.
Player though.
63 games is 68 games, so he can give he's all right at 12, 15 goal on NHL. I think for the 4th line, he should be a little bit higher level.
I think he'll play higher than that. I don't think he's a 4th line player. He's only 25, so even at 15 goals, 20 goals, that's his contract's pretty reasonable. That's why I think he's more like 3rd line and can flex up to 2nd. He's not
4th. On your lineup, you put on the roster, your depth chart. I believe 2 players are really interesting to know about this would be Jesper Pratt, and also Andreas Johansson. I think his 2 kids right there are really going to be interested about that. The defensive side is really questionable. Very questionable there.
Which defensive or offensive?
Defensive.
Really?
never Piqué Subban never going to be Piqué Subban at the what?
Oh, the defense? No, I think the defense is going to need some serious makeover.
Right.
I do not like Will Butcher. PK Subban's a wild card. I like Ryan Murray, but he's not like a number. Is he a number?
Ryan Murray is never going to be the Ryan Murray. Do we expect this over there? So it's not what it is. The young Severson is not young anymore. It's 26 years old, right? The key about him is like 2 years ago, he have 39, 40 points. He have 11 goals. He's a guy for 8, 10, 12 goals per year. So
he's got a huge shot here. Like his shot is like one of the better ones out there.
Yeah. And then Butcher, I think everybody expect him like he was before, where he got 44 points and like the year 17, 18 is misunderstanding what happened with them. They have a good year, but
that was about Taylor Hall being angry, Peter. Like that was Taylor Hall leaving Edmonton and trying to make a point. And he showed, hey man, I'm elite and I can raise the level of play of everybody, which he did. But the reality is Taylor Hall always he gets good numbers, but then he's got injury problems. Like he's always had the same issues. So then you see them fall back to the, earth. And then I think guys lose confidence because they're like, why am I not getting the points I used to get? Well, that shows the potential impact of a Taylor Hall, but it never works out consistently.
Yeah. So I think the difference 4, 5, and 6 is really questionable over there. So maybe that will open a door to other players coming from the rookie side. Sure. I think you talk about defense. We talked earlier. I think Riley Walsh, Ty Smith, and also Kevin Bahl will be very interesting about that. We already know what Kenville does over there. We know already Colton White does over there, but I think that would be very interesting. Those 3 names I just mentioned to you. Yeah. Maybe one or the 2 of them can make the team or different 7.
I think you're going to have a hard time not having Ty Smith on that lineup. I don't know this other guy, Nikita Okjiak. Maybe you should look into him. I don't know if he was a draft pick, though, I think.
Yeah.
But, the potential is with Smith. And I think you need to be patient with his upside, but he can play now. And he is my comparison is Shea with Theodore. Like to me, Ty Smith is very similar to Shea Theodore.
Good point here, but we'll see what he can carry on that
kind of time. He's not 24 and Shea Theodore is, right?
Yeah, he have a really 3 great years with him.
Oh yeah. No, he's good.
you talk about over 1 point per game.
He killed them. He's one of those guys where when we played them, he was a difference maker. Like we had this a couple years in a row where, we play Seattle and they have Matt Barzal, and Matt Barzal's the difference. And when we played Spokane, like Anderson Dolan and Ty Smith were the difference.
Yep. So that would be very interesting to see both of them. I really like Kevin Bahl, but I think Ty Smith is in front of him on my point. But let's go move on a little bit. Like we still have a couple of minutes. Finish it this part.
Yeah, I want to mention one other guy, which is I really think they did an amazing job at the draft. They got Holtz, who we're not even projecting him, but he might be on the roster. Like what you see in Alexander Holtz now might be what you see in 2 years. Like he doesn't need a lot to physically mature. He can play with high-end players. He's a goal scorer. He's never going to be a beautiful skater, but he's a average to above average skater. And the reason you want him is because he finds space and he's got an NHL shot. Like he's got a world-class shot. So if you can project and see how he does, he might make the team. Dawson Mercer is probably a year or 2 away, but man, there's another good player. We don't know a lot about Mukhamadullin, but by all accounts, he's a big, decent skating defenseman. I already talked about what he does. But even their 4th pick, Pierre, has potential to play in the pros someday. Like, I don't know if you remember this kid, Jaromir Pitlick.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he was like 10, 12, and he was doing these skills videos? Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, he's the next star. And he is a very good player in the OHL. Like, he's good size, he's got high skill level, and he produces well offensively. I think he's going to develop into better than a fourth pick. Like, he's got potential to play in the NHL.
Alexander always have 6.9 game right now in Sweden League. He have 4 goals in 9 games.
He's a sniper, Pierre. He can make this roster.
But I want to talk about Hischier Muhammadulin.
The greatest name in hockey now.
All right, so think about this. He played in KHL right now. The kid is 18 years old. He's already 7.24 games.
Wow.
Defenseman. So this kid have a lot of potential.
Yep.
So you think about this, then you have Dawson, Mercer. I think you bring a good point here. Their draft pick is really solid.
Oh, yeah.
Really good about them. And, that's the reason why they did 2 great. They are in a transition, right? They know they're not a top league player, but to trade Taylor Hall and Blake Como, they reinforce their young age because they got Nolan Foote. They got a first-round pick, and they pick up those 3 kids, Mercer. And then after that, they pick up they trade Taylor Hall, and they get Kevin
Bahl, Nick Merkley. They get the
plus the first-round pick on this year, 2020. So they really reinforce their situation over there.
You got to think, I don't think they're ready.
Oh, no, of course.
They are, you got to be patient with them. Is Lindy Ruff the right guy to do that? We're going to find out.
Yes, because remember what Rick Bonus did, right? Remember what the old Barry Trust and those old just is there. And then he surrendered with Alan Nesreddin. He's still there.
Is he still there? Okay, I like him. He did a very good.
There you go. They are really well loyal with this guy. I think that's a good pick over there.
Yep.
I think that's really solid staff over there. I tried to find something for you.
So they drafted Riley Walsh in the 3rd round in 2017. Interesting. So their draft record's been pretty damn good the last few years. I mean, they signed their 2nd pick from last year, the defenseman. I didn't realize he played in Ottawa. I don't think I've seen him play yet. The Russian kid.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I don't know that, and I think Tyce Thompson has some potential, and I don't know the guys ahead of them. So I think they've done a real good job. I feel like if you think about Pittsburgh and you think of Shero, what you think of is, where the hell did that guy come from? And he's able to find players that you just come out of nowhere, it feels like, and then be contributing players. And I feel like, even though he's gone, you look at his draft, there's guys there that are going to sneak up and develop, and they're going to play in the pros. And then they had a great draft under Fitzgerald this year. I mean, I think he did an excellent job. And then I even like signings. I don't love Kulikov, but I mean, I think the other signings and the trade for Johansson was real good. So I think they're going in the right direction. I think they're still going to get a high draft pick next year. I'm really stretching on some of these numbers. I'm having a hard time figuring out where their goals are coming from. And I don't trust that defense. I think that the numbers I'm projecting are a result of great goaltending, but the D is not going to help the cause very much. So if you look at offensively, you got to really wonder, are they going to even hit 200 goals as a team? It really depends on where you project Jack Hughes and Hischier getting to. Can Zajac get back to a 15-goal level? Can Gusev break 20? It's really questionable.
They're not there yet, for sure. They are not there yet. I know that, but still.
Yeah, they need time. And who do they get next year? If they get a top 5 pick, the defense in next year's draft, they could get a franchise defenseman. They could get a Brant Clark from Barrie. Okay, I got a number 1 D. And the outlook changes very quickly then.
Yeah.
They got a lot of good pieces. I mean, if you project that first pick being a defenseman, you throw in Alexander Holtz on this lineup, and maybe this year or next year, you see Mercer jumping in the lineup at some point. Hopefully Zacha continues to get more responsibility and develops the way that he can and becomes a 15, 20 goal big centerman or a winger. It doesn't matter with him. but I think he's better at center. And then they rebuild that defense around Bahl and Smith and whoever the first pick is. I think everyone else is on that defense goes away except maybe Severson. I don't see these guys. I mean, Subban has 2 more years at 9, right?
Yeah.
So I think they ride that out, and then that's the end of it.
At that time, Crawford will be out. Dawson will be out. Black will be there.
Dawson will be ready.
2-3 defensemen, kind of like Ty Smith, and then Bahl will be there. They have the 2 there. They're going to be good in 2-3 years. A good time. I want to mention before we leave, if you have a time to check on this kid, nobody know about him. Rislav Abrosimov. He never been drafted in NHL. And this year, in MHL, he have 30 point and 20 games.
Interesting. So that's the midget, the junior league in Russia, right?
Yeah. So he's played with the Chevnikov and those kids, and he dominate them right now. And nobody draft him. He's 19 years old. He's a May 2001.
Interesting. I don't know him, but that league is weak for sure, right? So it depends on his age.
Yeah.
Like a lower case, it's almost like provincial junior in Ontario or something.
Yeah, if you want to know a lot about the players like them, like him, everything like that, you follow like Konstantin Klazov in Lakeland. He's really bring a lot of players from that organization, like that. Those players never be drafted, or they produce very well over there. So
Konstantin
Klazov, Glazov.
Okay. So, you have to send me a link.
Yep, send it to you. So that's pretty good. Another great show, another great information about the New Jersey Devils. Thank Michael again. Tomorrow we're going to go to the New York Islanders with Barry Trotz and those very solid team, maybe one of the top 6 best team in NHL. Very interesting to follow up with the Matthew Barzal. Very, very surprised me. Nobody did any offer contract to anybody. I think someone could do jumping on Cirelli or Sergachev or Barzal. It'd be very interesting about that one over there. More for the
for sure. I don't know. I'm trying to project why would you do Cirelli? You're going to overpay if you do that.
Yeah, but still, you don't like him. Some people like him.
I like him, but I know what he is. It's like he's not a $5 million player.
We'll be interested about that one over there. So thanks again for everybody. Have an amazing Wednesday, Michael. See you tomorrow. Everybody, come back tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Enjoy the rest of your day.